Voters in 5 northeastern states are heading to the polls today, and all 172 delegates are at stake on the Republican side, 384 on the Democratic side. But in both primaries, there's still a way to go to clinch the nomination. Donald Trump is 68% of the way there. Clinton is 81% of the way to the nomination. Neither quite close enough to lock in anything tonight, except their front-runner status. Joining me are Leah Wright-Rigueur. She's an assistant professor of public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Good to see you again, Leah. And Dante Ramos, op-ed columnist for the Boston Globe. Good to see you, too.
Great to be here.
So the conventional wisdom, you two, is sweeps or near sweeps for Clinton and Trump. And I know if I was a responsible host, I would say, so tell me if the shotgun marriage of Kasich and Cruz is going to derail Trump, but I'm sick of it already. So let's get to what the question is going to be, I think, tomorrow. Can Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton in November? Most polls show him 9 to 10 points down, but a George Washington poll that came out in the last 36 hours has him within the margin of error 3 points. Can he win this election?
No, I can't see it. I mean, if you look at the basic factors in the election, the states where Democrats tend to be strong, the Democrats have built up a fairly strong advantage in the Electoral College in recent elections. All of the evidence suggests that Trump will probably poll worse than your average Republican candidate, and I don't see, I've been wrong about Trump before, but I don't really see him making a better showing than the average
Republican
Republican
candidate. He can't win the Republican
candidate.
nomination either, right, Dante?
Well, sure, but no, he's on the verge of doing that, but I think the general is a little bit different.
Okay, can he win the general in November?
So I think that it's highly unlikely, but this is resting on a lot of things, right? And I think what we have to keep in mind is that Donald Trump is unpopular, but so too in some circles is Hillary Clinton.
Two most unfavorably viewed candidates by far of the 22 who started running months and months ago.
Exactly, and so I think some of the polls that have come out, and really there have been a lot of wacky polls, but some of the polls that have come out have showed that Hillary Clinton's lead, right? She continually beats Donald Trump in most matchups, but that Hillary Clinton's lead has eroded in some ways.
Well, let me try to produce something that I think is going to help move him at least a little closer to you. Trump is big on branding opponents in ways that in most cases stick. Here are just a few examples.
Jeb Bush is low energy.
Governor Kasich is absentee.
Little Marco.
This little guy,
We call him the lightweight.
Ted Cruz, he's like a baby.
Lion Ted Cruz.
Okay, so here's what I think happened. He branded these people, and they stayed branded. We in the media started, even if we didn't use the terminology like he did, it's the prism through which most of us ended up looking at these candidates. And so why can't he do the same to the woman he calls, at least he's trying out, Crooked Clinton is his line. And maybe that's not the one he settles on, but if he brands her as well, why can't he do to her what he's done to all those people who were supposed to beat him, Dante?
A difference between Hillary Clinton and all of Trump's Republican opponents is that she is extraordinarily well known to the general public, for good or for ill. You know, that's one of the reasons why, against an opponent like Trump, she hasn't been as strong as perhaps some other mythical Democratic candidate might be. But, for better or for worse, she is a known quantity. And I think it's harder to just invent a whole new reputation for someone, or at least a whole new nickname for someone, 20 years after she became known to the general public.
But what if that nickname plays into the unfavorables you talked about before? People say she's not trustworthy. It's significant numbers. She's not honest, and those sort of things. So if that's where the brand fits, it doesn't change people's perception. It plays into it. Doesn't that help him in a huge way, potentially? So
it does help him, but we also have to keep in mind that Hillary Clinton has a lot of things at her disposal that she can use and lobby against Donald Trump, right? I think in the Republican race, or so far that we've seen in the primary race, there are several areas that Republicans have been, afraid to kind of jump right into. Race has been one of them. There have been a couple of lobs here and there, but by and large, people have stayed away from that. Hillary Clinton, though, in the general election can rely on this, push on this, really push those buttons and play into that. But again, that favorability and that trustworthiness, right? Can we trust her? is a big deal.
Let's talk about a key for both of them. A key for him, it seems to me, is reinvention. There's a great headline in the New York Times editorial, I think today, the Donald Trump Pygmalion Project. You know, essentially, can Henry Higgins redo him? And he's being ridiculed for saying, you know, I'm going to act presidential, I'm going to be different, we're going to remake him. Doesn't virtually every candidate on the Republican side starts on the right, ends up in the middle in the final? Democrats start on the left and end up in the middle. Why is this, the reinvention of Donald Trump, so different from what's happened with prior nominees, Dante?
I think his position has been idiosyncratic the entire campaign.
To his benefit.
To his benefit, but it also means that this usual pattern of running hard to the right and then running closer to the center in the general election, he just hasn't really followed that pattern exactly. And the kinds of appeals that he has made to people, a more emotional appeal, have worked for a Republican presidential campaign, but may not work in the same way in a general election campaign. And the types of opposition research that has not worked against him in the Republican primary may in a general.
You know, I agree with the emotional appeal, but when people vote come November, aren't they often voting because of their emotional connection to a candidate rather than because of where he or she is on every single issue?
So they're definitely keeping in mind emotion, but I mean, if we look back at kind of past presidential races, we've also seen that people have cared about specific issues, right? 2008, people cared about the economy, and part of that was there was this massive, economic collapse, and people wanted a leader who seemed like he was, seemed like he or she was invested and actually understood what was going on, right? And I think while John McCain may have shown that, Sarah Palin did not inspire a lot of confidence.
But she was the vice president. Yeah, but aren't people sick of career politicians? Even if Hillary Clinton had great favorability numbers, had great trustworthy numbers, can we agree that a lot of Democrats and independents agree with a lot of Republicans? We're sick of these career politicians. And even if we have to hold our nose on a lot of fronts with Donald Trump, he's something new and different and will blow the place up. You're shaking your head no.
I don't think so. I mean, surely there are some people who voted for Obama twice who will vote for Donald Trump in general. I mean, there's always some sliver of people who will behave in every possible permutation. What feels different about this is that, in a primary campaign, the actual issue difference, character issues, differences of style tend to be more important in a primary election than in a general election campaign. And the fact that on issues he's all over the place, that his positions tend to be very unsteady and improvised, that will presumably make more of a difference in a general than in a primary.
Dante, it's good to see you. I haven't quite convinced you yet, nor you, Leah, but we'll continue this discussion over the next 6.5 months.